Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of 410 Sports Talk. I'm Glenn Martin. I'm here with my co-host James Haskell, and in this video, we are going to be covering the recent trade requests made by Jamal Adams, the safety for the New York Jets. And Jimmy, the Ravens made his cut list, okay? I think he named 7 teams that would he'd be willing to accept a trade to. I don't know how much say he has in this. I didn't look up whether this is I doubt there's any way he could have had a no trade clause being on a rookie deal. So I don't know how much say he has in this, but he put out a list and the Ravens made the cut.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I make references to The Office all the time, but I cannot help but think about when Michael Scott starts the Michael Scott Paper Company, realizes he's broke, and then he walks into David and says, "These are our demands."
Yes.
With literally no leverage.
No leverage. But they didn't know that.
They didn't know that. So Jamal Adams just walked in like Michael Scott and said, "These are my demands." And just so you guys have an idea, like you said, we made the list, and I thought it was interesting in the tweet, we were the top of the list. We didn't just make the list. We were the top of the list. And the other teams are the Cowboys, of course, because he's from Texas. The Texans as well. He's from Texas. The Chiefs, the Eagles, the Niners, and the Seahawks. So those are the teams. What I'm really excited to get into is, look, do we think it's real? Is it feasible? Is it sustainable? I know a lot of people are excited about it right off the bat, Glenn. Like, what's your gut? Do you think that this is something that you could see Eric DeCosta doing?
Well, it's certainly something I would never imagine Ozzie doing.
Right.
But with Eric, I think there's the possibility certainly increases a little bit. Now, the question is, how much does it increase? So let me say this. I think what Ravens fans have to remember is this isn't this isn't going to be a Madden trade. So you're not going to be able to give them a bunch of trash and a bunch of junk, a bunch of players you don't want, and they're going to give you the all-pro safety of his rookie year. So it's going to cost you something to get him. And the baseline we can go by is the trade that the Rams made when they acquired Jalen Ramsey, because he was another all-pro secondary. Now, he's a corner, so maybe you say that's a little more valuable than a great safety, and I'll give you that. But what the Rams gave up was 2 first-round picks and a 4th-round pick to get Jalen. And what also you have to remember is that you're not just giving up that much draft capital. So you're giving up 2 first rounds. Say the 4th is because he's a corner. So let's just say 2 1s. So you give up 2 1s. You're not just giving up 2 1s for 1 or 2 years of service. So you're giving up 2 1s, plus you now have to give him a monster contract extension that he's expecting. So it's more than just giving up the capital. Now you're investing in a guy long-term for a very high price tag. You know, what makes draft picks so valuable is that you get them on such a cheap contract. So you're not even getting that value. You're not even getting to enjoy that first 3 years of relative cheap service. You're getting his last 2 years, his most expensive 2 years on his rookie deal, and you're going to have to pay him a very pricey long-term extension. So I just wanted to set those parameters up and make sure people understand that what it's going to really cost to get a guy of his caliber.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, think about, what's funny about the Ramsey thing is that they traded away Peters, and look, you guys can blow me up for this, but Peters is better.
Certainly played better.
He's better. So, but I'm okay. He's on our team. But the thing I'll say about that, I agree. I think that's a good baseline to use. Another thing to keep in mind, to factor in to this possibility of him coming to the Ravens, is that, he's on the final 2 years of his rookie deal, but he obviously wants a deal now.
Yeah.
It's not like we can say, I don't know if he would go for, hey, wink, wink, come over to us and we'll let you play out the last 2 years of your deal, then we'll give you a monster deal. No, he's upset because he wants a deal.
Yeah.
He's earned a deal and he wants it. And, he said they haven't even had conversations or haven't had conversations in a long time. So he's upset about the fact he doesn't have a deal now. And so that's something that would have to be addressed immediately. That's something to keep in mind. And then Glenn and I were doing some rough math. I know that you have some figures over there for some resource allocation to the secondary already. You guys have to consider we already have the most expensive secondary in the league, right?
Yep.
what are some of those cap hits that we have and like guys associated with them?
Yeah, so right now we have recently extended Marcus Peters, who carries a cap hit of $15 million this season. We have Earl Thomas, who also carries a cap hit of $15 million this upcoming season. We have Tavon Young, who fans may forget that he was recently extended, and now we haven't seen the fruits of that because he's been injured with the neck injury. But he has an $8 million cap hit this season. Now, Chuck Clark, much lesser, but recently extended as well, has a cap hit of $3.4 million. Marlon on the most unbelievably cheap deal and maybe best value in football, having just a $2 million cap hit this season. And then Anthony Levine making 1.1. So just from those players, that's $44.5 million of your cap space just dedicated to those 6 players. So now if you take and throw in Jamal Adams, what was he making this season and next?
3.5.
I'm sorry, what was it?
His total cap hit is 7.1. My bad. Yeah.
And that's this season, and then 9.8 for the following, correct?
Following, yep.
So I just don't know how you take the already most expensive secondary in the league, and now you're adding a guy that's $7 million cap hit and almost 10 next year. Now the only thing is, do you think there's a possibility that they might be able to get out from underneath one of their current deals, maybe an Earl Thomas? Do you think there's any chance that the Jets would take a trade, maybe like an Earl Thomas plus a 1 or 2 1s?
Man, I tell you what, if I'm the Jets and I'm getting Earl Thomas and 2 1s, I'm taking that to the bank.
You taking that? Okay.
Dude, 2 1s? I'm taking it I'm sorry, but I'm taking 2 1s for any disgruntled player I got, unless it's my quarterback. That's just me. Like, first round picks.
Well, I'm saying we're giving them 2 1s and Earl Thomas. Yeah.
No, yeah, absolutely. I'm saying even without Earl in the equation, if they just said, here's 2 1s and I get to offload a disgruntled player, unless he's my quarterback, sorry, not worth 2 1s. It's just very rare that guys are worth 2 1s,
But are you taking on that contract if you're the Jets too?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm doing, I guess the way I would phrase this is I'm doing it because of the 2 1s. Like it's, you're just, like you said, you're just taking on a contract. And that's not to dismiss Earl's talent, right? But he's obviously still got some stuff left in the tank there and can perform at a high level. I think that he came on the later the season went on, but I don't know if people are super comfortable with taking it on either from a value perspective. I don't know how willing the Jets would be wanting to play ball, but more than anything, even if the Jets are, I don't think there's any way, there's not a snowball's chance in hell that the Ravens give up 2 1s for anybody unless he is your next franchise guaranteed quarterback. I think we just value them too much. Eric DeCosta's of that ilk, right? So it's got to be something different, something creative. I don't know, man. I don't know if I see it happening. I also heard some scenarios with a couple mid-round guys and Chuck Clark. But then, like you said, that if we just added in Jamal Adams' cap figure, this year's cap figure, we would be at 26% of our salary cap dedicated just to the starting secondary, no backup guys. That is huge. I mean, that's not considering, like you said, his deal's going to be up when Marlins is up. How are you going to pay them both? And then you got Lamar, you got Ronnie, you got Matt, you got Andrews, and then by that time you got Marquise.
Yeah, no doubt. The only thing I'll say is the only way any trade, I look around the league and I think about the teams that would be most benefited from a Jamal Adams, and I look at teams that feel like they're on the cusp of winning, and it would only make sense to me if you're going to give up that much capital to get a guy. The only way you validate that trade is by winning a Super Bowl.
Right.
Because if you win a Super Bowl, it doesn't matter what it takes and what you did to get it. That's all that matters in this game. That's it, is winning it all. If you're not first, you're last in football, and that's just the bottom line of the deal. So if a team really feels that he's that missing piece, he's that one extra building block that can get him over the hump and get him a Super Bowl, then I think no matter what you gave up, then it was worth it. But if you're going to give up 2 1s and you get knocked out in the first round of the playoffs, Then you look back and it's a huge mistake because now you have to pay a guy $15+ million a year at minimum is what he's going to be asking for in his long-term deal. And now you don't have any first-round picks for the next 2 seasons when we know that the first round is the best and fastest and easiest way to rebuild your team. Yeah, I look at this list. What surprised me is that if you look at the odds right now, the odds makers have the Ravens as the favorite to get him at 5-2 odds, followed by the Bucks at 3-1, and then the Cowboys at 4-1. I am shocked by that because, I mean, if I'm the Jets, I'm in a rebuilding type thing. So bringing in Earl Thomas, I guess the only way you could say maybe it helps sell some tickets while we're rebuilding. But why are you going to pay an aging safety when you're not looking to win in the very near future?
Yeah, no, I'm with you 100% on that. Yeah, that would be a weird, influx of personnel based on their youth movement, if you will, right? I realize they got Le'Veon, and he's not necessarily a young guy, but he's not as veteran, if you will, as like I would consider Earl. And so, yeah, that's interesting. I wonder how much the odds are basing it on the relationship between Joe Douglas and the Ravens front office. Obviously, he's from that ilk of, the front office of the Ravens. He was groomed and, cut his teeth with a lot of those guys. And so that's something to consider. I don't know how we make it work. Now, that's why we're not Eric DaCosta.
Right.
And that's why he's the magic man. So who knows? I'd love it if he makes it work. But if I'm a betting man, I like that Cowboys bet.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point because they need help in the secondary. Yeah, they just saw Byron Jones go out the door. They feel like they're close. I think most Cowboys fans feel like they're close every year, but certainly this year they feel like they're on the cusp of something. So, yeah, I wouldn't be shocked. But I think you mentioned a good point that kind of slipped my mind in the beginning was for 2 teams to negotiate a contract, it's likely that those 2 teams are going to have some sort of a relationship or rapport. I mean, we've seen with the Ravens, they tend to go back to a certain few teams to make trades. Philly seems to be a big one where John Harbaugh's ties and his links to Philly seem to make their working relationship work pretty good. And then the Jaguars, we've made a couple trades. So certainly their link with Joe Douglas being a longtime part of the Ravens front office makes it a little bit more realistic. And I'm sure, put it this way, I'm sure that they've already talked. They've already exchanged some sort of dialogue because they have a relationship. They have a friendship, I imagine. So I think that makes it a little bit more of a possibility because it's not just him. There's a lot in that personnel department that are former Ravens, former scouts. So there's certainly going to be a relationship there, but I still look at this as being a pretty big long shot.
All right, so 2 questions here to wrap it up. One, does your gut tell you that he stays or he goes? Like, is he just upset? And because we've seen these type of things, Jamal Adams is an outspoken guy. I'm not saying it's bad to be outspoken, but this is not the first time that he's been upset about the treatment that he's gotten from the Jets. And things calm down, and then he gets upset, and then things have calmed down. So I think if it's up to me, I think he stays. I think he gets ironed out. What's your take on that?
I don't think you can keep a player around who's as disgruntled as he seems to be. I think that the Jaguars tried to do that with Ramsey, and we saw how that went, where he wasn't participating in practice. He would show up for games, but it was a constant headline where, he's on social media or getting interviews on different platforms, and he's saying, look, I want out of here. I'm not going to participate. He wasn't practicing. Then he'd show up for game days and play somewhat, but not even then. I think there was a few games he missed where he was healthy enough to play and chose not to. So I think the worry would be he's probably going to hold out. So if you don't trade him, he's probably going to hold out of an already truncated and shortened mini camp if they do get to have one. I just think that the negatives outweigh keeping him. Look, I'm sure they'd like to have an all-pro safety who's 24 years old, but they're probably going to get some pretty darn good offers for him, and they can turn those 2 first-round picks that they're probably going to get and hopefully get a player that's comparable to him with one of those. I just don't see how you can go into a season with a player who's so disgruntled that will likely hold out and that could cause waves in the media and I don't see how it ends well if they keep him.
All right, fair enough. I totally get this point. Last question. If he goes, regardless of the odds, where do you think he lands?
I think you called it. I think the Cowboys – look, Jerry Jones knows he's what, in his 80s? I mean, money can't buy two things that he wants the most. He wants more time and he wants a championship. You can't buy those. You just can't buy – I mean, I guess you could with good health care in a way, but you certainly can't buy a Super Bowl. And he knows he's only got so much time left, and he wants to win. So I think that he's going to go out and make a play for Jamal Adams, and I just hope it's not the Chiefs.
Now, but they just paid Tyrann Mathieu. I mean, I guess they could play together back there, but
they don't have any cap space. I'd be shocked if it was the Chiefs, but
didn't they have like $1.50 and a couple pesos in like cap space or something?
Yeah, it's pretty bad, but I don't see any. I mean, maybe the Seahawks. Maybe I'm looking at this list, and yeah, I mean, I'd say the Cowboys, the Seahawks, and one other team I wouldn't be shocked would be the 49ers maybe jumping in there and pairing him back with or not back, but pairing him on the back end with Richard Sherman wouldn't be a bad fit.
Well, I tell you what, I wouldn't overlook the Bucs either, because if anybody's in win now mode, you got a 43-year-old quarterback, you're in win now mode.
That's true. That is true.
I wouldn't overlook that either. But let us know what you guys think. Do you think the Ravens have a chance of getting him? What would it take for us to give up? How creative? Give us some scenarios. Like Glenn said, this is not Madden. So, but what do you think that DaCosta could be floating out there? And then also, do you even think it's worth it? I mean, we already have the most expensive secondary. But either way, hit the like button. Make sure to subscribe, because we're going to keep you guys up to date on all the Ravens news, all the NFL news in general. So go ahead and hit subscribe, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
See you.